Welcome to Class 3. Here I have some footage of an actor where the facial dots need to be removed. This shot will have 3 classes dedicated to it, with the first one covering the degraining process. The second one will cover the intricacies of the paint window, paint node, point tracking, and the clone tool, and the third one will be lots of painting and then regraining. So first I'll take you through the degraining, or sometimes called the denoising process. An essential but unglamorous part of post-production and visual effects is dealing with grain, which can also be thought of as noise. If part of an image is manipulated, then you need to make sure that the grain still looks good and matches the rest of the plate. There are a couple main workflows when dealing with the preservation of grain for final output. 1. An artist paints on the plate with no denoising done ahead of time to remove the grain or noise. They may or may not paint in the alpha at the same time as RGB. If an area gets too soft while painting, then they can add additional grain using the grain brush or applying a grain node to the painted areas using an alpha channel. 2. An artist degrains the plate ahead of time, paints in the RGBA, and then regrains the painted alpha afterwards using the grain node. So there are situations where artists will denoise a plate and then regrain the entire plate afterwards, but I'm more of the mindset of preserving as much as the original plate as possible. And as an aside, denoising is also helpful for tracking, so sometimes artists will denoise clips just so they can get a better tracking result. While this is a good option, it's also good to know that Silhouette has filtering options inside all 3 of its tracking modules that can blur the source while tracking. So maybe try that first for a better tracking result to save time, as opposed to rendering out a denoise clip just for the sake of tracking. It will also save you some disk space. Learning how to degrain and regrain is a solid skill to have. One thing to mention here is that while I do use the term degrain, I also refer to this process as denoising. Let's take a look at the noise in this clip. I'm going to zoom in here, very close, and we'll play it through. And you can see the noise. And we'll go to the blue channel where we can really see it. Alt to B. And you can see the noise in the blue channel pretty well. It's usually most predominant in the blue channel. And then we can also take a look in the red and the green. Alt R, Alt G, Alt B, and back to color. So for this class, I always show you 2 options to degrain or denoise in Silhouette, and then focus on using the neat Video OFX plugin to obtain the result I want. So inside of Silhouette, there are a couple choices. So here in our trees window, we have our clip, and I brought in a degrain node. So down here in the degrain node parameters window, I have the amount set to 10, and that is the default. So I'm really going to zoom in here one more time. And you can see the original and the degrain. And we'll cycle through the channels, Alt B, Alt R, G, and back to color. So while I feel this degraining might work out for me, I'm going to try a couple different options. I'm really concerned about keeping some of the detail in the plate. And then Silhouette also has a time blur node. So let me zoom out here. The time blur node mixes frames together to reduce video noise. So if one were to use it for denoising, it's mostly useful only for a lock-off, as it blends the before and after frames to produce the result. You can see down here, the node parameters window, you can change this, this value down here. Then you see if I do that, then I'm getting too much mixing in my image. It's not quite right for something that is moving. However, if I zoom in here to this area where the background is just a lock-off, there's nothing moving back here, it could work. If I just up this value a little bit, and I do a compare from the original to the result, maybe a little bit more. I can take a snapshot, and we'll compare it that way. We'll go to, say, the blue channel, to an area where you can really see it. So we have our original here on the right, and then we have our blurred frame on the left. So this really could suffice if you just have one single frame. Okay, you can see I have my source node here, and I'm going to bring in the Reduce Noise plugin. It's located in the OFX tab, and you can click on that and just bring that into your trees window and line it up and put it right below your source. And then you can launch the Prepare Noise Profile button here. You can launch the interface by pressing that button. The frame I'm on when I launch Neat Video is the frame that the noise profile will be built on. You can see I'm on frame, the first frame of the clip here, and that is where the noise profile will be built. And I chose this frame because there wasn't any blur from the actor's face from his moving his head up and down. And I wanted a clear image to work with. But then you can see down here at the bottom of the interface that Neat Video is actually choosing the frame that it wants to build the profile from. It's looking for the frame with the most noise. One of the most important steps, if not the most important step, is to make your selection area, which will serve as the foundation for this process. And there are two ways. The first option is to click Auto Profile, which is up here on the upper left. And now you can see it has selected an area down here on the lower left with a noise level of 3.4 and no errors. So that is one way to do it. And another way to do it is to create your own selection. And I'm going to try a different area, and I'm going to try an area on the actor's skin since I'm going to be painting the skin. So I'm going to just draw a selection box here. You can see that's, it says it's too small, but actually I get these non-uniform errors, and I don't want any of those errors. So I'm going to just keep dragging again and see if I can get a box that has a good noise level. And there we go, noise level 6.5, that's higher, and I have no errors. Yeah, so the things to keep in mind when you're building a manual profile is that you want to look for noisy, large, uniform, and featureless areas. You want as large an area as possible with no errors as to estimate the noise correctly in all frequencies. Okay, so before we go any further, let's look at the different viewing modes inside of this interface. Up here in the View menu here, you can see I can zoom in and out with these hotkeys here. That's Command plus and minus, plus and minus. I'll just zoom in here, and I can pan with the middle mouse button. So we'll go down and just kind of focus on the face here. You can always change the layout as well in the viewer, and you can do that by going to View, Viewer Mode, and you can do this kind of 2x2 split. Or you can do 1x3 to the right, and we'll go back to the default, which is 1x3 in the bottom. And then you can also, besides this layout here on the bottom with these frequencies, you can also look at RGB, which is like that, and we'll go back to the default. And then down here on the bottom left, you can see this red box is the area that we're focused in on, so you can use this little box to pan around as well. And you can see the little yellow square here, which is where our profile is going to be built on. And then you also have a little slider here to change the brightness. Okay, so once I'm happy with my selected area, here I have a good noise level and no errors, I'm going to click the Profile Check button here on the upper right. So the image looks a little blurry, and that's okay, it's only temporary. It's so I can see unwanted noise that might still be remaining. I can see a few things here and there, and I think I'm just going to up the noise level just a tiny bit. And that's just going to make it remove a little bit more of the noise. But if I take it too far, or push it too far, it's just going to end up way too blurry. And then I'll pan in a little bit here, and maybe I'll zoom in. And then we can really see what we're working with. Okay, when I'm satisfied with this result, I go up and I click the Adjust and Preview tab. So you can make even more adjustments as you go along. And here is the Temporal tab. And you can see here it's set to 2. Temporal works to compare frames around the current one to determine what is noise and what is not. So if you increase the radius, you will give the computer more data to work with, and the picture will look cleaner, but at the cost of render time. And then we have the Spatial tab here. where there is a noise reduction amount and a noise level slider. The noise reduction amount, it determines how much of the detected noise that you'll want to reduce by the spatial filter. So the default is set to 40. And so if you increase this, it could become a little more processed and you might lose some of those details. But I still think I have a little more noise that I want to reduce. I'm just going to up that a tiny bit. And then I think that's what I want. So then if I wanted to want to compare my before and after, I can go into the viewer here and I can click on that. And you can see before and after. I'm going to zoom in so we can get really close in here. And then I'll click on the image. That's before and that's after. And if I like, I can even play through my frames. And you can drag a selection area. So here you can see your processed image here and your original on the outside. So when I'm happy with the results, I'm just going to click the apply button here. And now we'll zoom in and we'll compare the before and after. This is my non-processed frame. And this is my denoised frame. Okay, so now it's time for some paint, but before that, I'm going to keep my denoising sessions separate from my painting sessions and pre-comp out my denoised plate. I could add a paint node after the reduced noise node, but that would slow me down a bit and take up more memory because Silhouette would be processing the reduced noise calculation on the fly. And it's also possible that the level of denoising had to change, then you would want that as a separate step in itself. This applies not just to Silhouette, but to other software packages as well. So some pre-comping will keep your workflow cleaner. So now I'm ready to render out my denoise plate. I'm going to go up to my source here, and I'm going to add an alpha channel here. I'm going to put the fill as transparent. And then down in the output node here, I'm going to make sure that alpha is checked. And then here in this file box here, I will just pull this over. We can see it a little bit better. If you click on these little dots here, you can navigate to the folder where you want to save your frames and give them the name that you want to save them as. So I've added a DN at the end of my frame, and I've already rendered them out. And one thing to look at down here is in the sample box. This is very convenient and user-friendly. You can see the path and the name of your render, where your render is going to go and what it's called. And then when you're ready to go, you click the render button, and you can see the options here. We are going to render the selected output nodes, the work range. We have some other options if we wanted to. And then we have our frame range here. And you make sure that you have the output start frame correct as well. And when you are ready to go, you just click the render button. But I've already rendered out my sequence. But lastly, before I leave this session, I'm going to export my denoise settings from Neat Video and save them in folders in my shot directory. And this is helpful if you have similar shots in the same sequence in A, don't want to go through the process again and save time, and B, have a similar denoising pass in similar shots, which will help give your work a consistent look. Okay, so we'll zoom out here. You have to save your profile and preset settings, and here is how you do it. So here in my, my tree, I'm clicked on the reduce noise node. I'm going to just pull this up a little bit here, and I'm going to click the adjust filter settings. So what we need to do here is we need to save the profile and the preset. So we're going to go to the prepare noise profile tab here, and we're going to click on the save current device noise profile as. So we're going to save this, click on that button. And I'm going to give this, I'm already in my DN profile folder. I'll give us a different name. I've saved one out, but we'll call this clip 1 VO2. And we'll click save. And then we'll go to the adjust and preview. And we'll save out this preset here. And you actually also should check out the other presets that come with Neat Video. If you click on this little down arrow there, you can see the general and advanced presets that you can load in. But we have created our custom one, and I'm going to save that here. And you can see I have a DN preset folder that I've already made. And I will call this clip 1. Preset VO2. And I'm saving this in my shot folder here, but you can also save it in a shared directory, or you can use the default path that is inside the applications. We'll click Save, and then we're done here. So I'm just going to cancel out. And then here we are in another session with a separate but similar clip. You can see up here I'm now switched into the clip 2 denoise session. And I have my source here, and I'm going to bring in a reduce noise node. So we're already here. I'm going to just click that and drag it and nestle it in between. And now I'm going to load in my profile and preset settings. I'm going to prepare a noise profile, click that button to open the interface. And now we're in this interface here. I'm in the noise profile tab, and I'm going to click to load a device noise profile. And then we're going to navigate. We're already there. It's the VO2. We're going to open that. And then I'm going to go to the Adjust and Preview tab, and I'm going to load in my preset VO2, apply, and now I have the same noise profile and preset applied to this clip as my clip 1. We'll zoom in here. And then we have our reduced noise filter right here. So that's a great time saver. So exported settings can also be loaded into other Silhouette projects, or they can be loaded into nodes into other host applications that have a license and the same major version 5 of Neat Video. And there are also 2 other options. You can copy-paste your reduced noise node from one session to another session in Silhouette. So let's try that. I'm just going to delete this node here, and we'll go back to our clip 1 denoise session. Here I'm selected on my reduced noise node. I'm going to copy, Command C. I'm going to go back to my clip 2. I'm going to click on my source and Command V, and then I'm going to nestle that in. And now you can see that I have the same settings in clip 1 and clip 2. And then I'll show you the last way. I'll delete this node. I'm going to go back to clip 1. I'm going to click on the reduce noise node here. We're going to go up to the top of the trees window, and we're going to save this node. So we're going to save and export it. So here we are in Neat Video. I've done this before. We're going to make this a version 3. And then we're going to go to our clip 2. And I'm going to load in the node here. And the little icon here, load the node. And I'm going to click the version 3, open it, and insert it into my tree. And that is the last way to have the same noise pass, denoise pass in both clips. So that is another way you can reuse your work and keep the look consistent. And all in all, the Reduce Noise plugin is a great addition to Silhouette since it's sort of considered the best-in-class denoiser, and if you up your game with your denoising skills, it will certainly be beneficial. So this concludes Class 3, and I will see you in the next class, which is a continuation of our work on this shot.